get started in just a second. Hello. Hello, Amor. Hello, E. Johnson 57. How y'all this evening? Where y'all from? Tell me where y'all from. Oh, EJ. Hey, EJ. Hey, Shanique. How are you? Thank y'all for tuning in. Let me cut my music off over on my other platforms. And we're going to go ahead on and get started. Good evening. Good evening. Good evening. Good evening. I've already said hello to IG. Facebook, hello, y'all. You guys just don't know. I am excited to be on tonight. I'm usually never on in the evening times, so excuse me if I'm a little more goofy towards the evening times because I'm a nighttime girl. Like I usually stay up pretty late anyway, and so the later it gets, the more energized I get. Like that is kind of backwards. I know it's kind of backwards, but that's just kind of how my body works. So I get a little bit more energized in the evening time, and plus I'm excited about being here in the evening time so that I can catch some of you that I don't normally get a chance to catch in the daytime when I'm live. Usually I'm on like at 12:30 every day, but yeah, a lot of people are working during that time. And so, hey, Miss, is it Lily Pushin? Did I get your name right on IG? I'm sorry if I messed up your name. But so I'm using my own. So I'm excited that I get a chance to interact with some more different people that I don't get a chance to interact with when I am here during the afternoon time. So today we're going to continue talking about toxic relationships. Like if this is your very first time joining me, then I may say some things that you have not heard before. And a lot of times I tend to reference things that I've said before in previous lives. So if you have never heard me say these things before, if you never joined one of my lives and I mentioned a previous live, that's your clue. Jot it down. I have paper everywhere, but you should have a paper with something that you can jot it down and go check out the video that I may reference as we're going through this. All of my videos are up on YouTube. They're up on Facebook. If you're on IG, I usually keep them up on IG. You'll be able to find it. And now I also have my videos up on Indeed. Hey, Worship 91. Hey, thank you for following Worship 91. I appreciate that. Thank you for tuning in. So IG is ready, y'all. IG ready. Y'all ready? We're going to talk about toxic relationship. If you hear a little tang in my voice, it's because I'm country and I'm from the South. So, I mean, it is what it is. I'm country and I don't apologize for it. I don't apologize for who I am. So if I say something, you're like, what did she say? You just say, what did you say? Because I'm from the South. So I got a little twang in my voice, okay? So for those of you who do not know who I am, my name is Dr. Tiffany. And I am a therapist. I'm a trained therapist, and I'm also a relationship expert. And I particularly work with women who are healing and recovering from traumatic relationships, such as toxic relationships, abuse, or bad breakups, or even just life transitions where they just kind of find that they didn't handle them well, grief, those kind of things. But they're healing and recovering from some type of traumatic event in their life. And so I come alongside with them and help partner with them as a coach to help get them to their next phase, whatever their next phase is to be. So I absolutely love what I do. I get to kind of use some of the skills as a therapist, as a coach, which actually works out for me very well because I know when someone needs therapy and I can say, hey, you don't need a coach right now, you need a therapist. And I strategically have it that way where I go ahead on and refer them to therapists. And I have a lot of therapists, especially if you're local, have therapists that I specifically refer some of my people to. So you guys ready? I'm excited. Let me check Facebook. Let me check YouTube. Oh, good evening, good evening, good evening, good evening. Okay, so today we're talking about the truth about toxic relationships. And I always like to start off by giving definition because sometimes people don't know what toxic relationships are. Like, we especially now, like we throw a whole lot of words around narcissism and gaslighting and we throw a lot of this stuff around and everybody don't know what that means. Like I remember I was working with a client before and I was like, oh, you just need to learn how to set boundaries. And she was like, what? Said what? Like, how do you do that? Sometimes people just don't know. It's not that they're not doing something because they just don't want to do something. Sometimes what I find is people just don't know what to do. And if you come from a place to where you're used to seeing these kind of relationships or you've been told that this is what's acceptable, then you just may not know what to do. And so I like to always start off by giving a definition to what toxic relationships are. So toxic relationship, by my definition, and you may see this definition floating around somewhere, is a relationship that's characterized by extreme highs and extreme lows. And so I know you're like, what do you mean by extreme highs and extreme lows? Hey, George Jaden, I know who you are. Hey, thank you for joining me over here on IG. So there are relationships that's characterized by extreme highs and extreme lows. And so what you see in relationships that are toxic are times where it's just like it's really good. Like you come into the relationship, you're like, this person this is the person that I can really see myself being with this person for a long time. I can almost see myself marrying this person. Like, cause your guard gets down and they're like the ideal partner in a relationship in the beginning. But then over time, what you start seeing is that the relationship goes down and down, and then they start getting worse and worse. They start treating you worse and worse. They start saying things like, it may start off like little slick things in the beginning, and then over time, they're full out calling you bees and, cursing you out and saying all kind of crazy stuff to you because the relationship get worse and worse. And what happens is the extreme high is why people stay. Like people stay in the relationship because of the extreme highs. The extremely bads don't usually stay around, but maybe a brief period of time and things just kind of level off. It may get better. You may threaten to leave and they don't really want you to leave, so they start treating you better, and then the relationship kind of go right back in a cycle. So you start seeing this toxic cycle of in the relationship that's marked by extreme high and extreme low. And another thing you start seeing with toxic relationship is that it involves constant levels of like dangerous emotional and mental strain. So, relationships are normally can be stressful. Like you got two people that's trying to get to know one another that came from two different backgrounds. So relationships are going to be stressful, right? Like this, you're going to have times where it's going to be stressful because it's a relationship. We're people. We're human. We're going to make some mistakes. We're going to fail. We're going to do something wrong. So the relationship is going to have some type of strain at some point in time. But with toxic relationships, what you see is constant levels of anxiety or constant levels of emotional pain or mental strain. Or you may even start feeling like like you're crazy. And I say that loosely, I say that loosely, but you may feel like, wait a minute, did I really do that? Like you start questioning yourself. You start questioning whether or not you heard what you thought you heard or whether they said what they thought they said. You start kind of questioning things. You even may start questioning yourself. Like, is something wrong with me? Like maybe it's me. Maybe I'm not really, maybe this person really not doing this, and maybe it's something wrong with me. And then but your body, because our bodies hold our emotions even when we don't recognize it. Like you may go along about your day, or you may have been in this relationship for years and you may have just become numb to things, but then your body may start acting up. So we see, especially in toxic relationships, we see people with a lot of aches and pains, not just heartaches, but aches and pains, and to some degree like a back pain, arthritis, physical muscle pain, all this because trauma lives in our body. Trauma lives in our body. And there's all kind of research out there. You can go Google that people who have gone through traumatic issues or have some form of trauma, everybody don't respond to trauma the same way, but there are certain people that respond to trauma that makes it traumatic for them, and it lives on in their life, and it plays out in their relationship. It changes how they see themselves. It changes how they see the world, how they see life, how they view other people, because we see people through our own, ooh, there's something flying. We see people through our own lens, and if your lens is marked by pain, emotional pain, trauma, hurt, then you literally view people through that. You view people through that. So in toxic relationships, there's constant levels of emotional strain or pain or mental strain, and you don't feel like yourself. Like, you get to the point where you just really do not feel like yourself. And so the last element, which is, this is not inclusive at all, but another element of toxic relationship is that we see abuse. We see abuse inside of the relationship. Now, we sometimes don't equate emotional abuse as abuse, or verbal abuse as abuse. But somebody cursing you out, that's verbal abuse. I don't care if it's your mama. If they cursing you out, that's verbal abuse. Emotional abuse, if they're constantly playing mind games with you, or like you have this constant state of, it's like a little bug of anxiety that you're in, there's some emotional abuse that's there. Toxic relationships are characterized by some kind of emotional abuse that is present inside of that relationship. So sometimes we just need to call things what they are. Like, I was talking to someone here recently, and they were saying, you know, how a person acted or their partner acted when they were upset. I was like, oh, so they're getting angry and saying certain things to you that were hurtful and mean. You don't see nothing wrong with that. It's abuse. It is emotional abuse. It's verbal abuse. Toxic at its best. Absolutely toxic at its best. So it's not okay for people to call you names. Like, I don't care how long you've been with me, it's not okay for you to call me outside my name. My name is Tiffany. My name is Tiffany. You can call me Ross. You can call me any of combination, Tynette. You can call me any combination of my name. But to call me something that degrades me and disrespect me and dishonors who I am is not okay. It's not okay. I don't care if they're doing it to you, you're doing it to them. It's not okay. It's not okay. So we see some form of abuse. Another thing, I think I said this a few minutes ago, is mind games. Like, the constantly playing the mind games and making you feel like, you know, you're crazy. Or if you ask for something that you need and they make you feel guilty about asking for what you need inside of the relationship. Or they're always putting themselves on like they are the center of attention inside of the relationship, and you just kind of there to fulfill their needs. Or even, you know, in intimacy, because I don't want to get censored. So even in intimacy, it's not okay. And we talked about this the other day. Like I said, if I reference one of the videos I've already done, go back and check out the video. But we talked about how it's sexual violence happens inside of committed long-term relationships. And I was going back and forth, or I really wasn't going back and forth, because I don't really like to argue. Like, if I know what I'm talking about, why am I gonna argue with you? You know, you know what I'm saying? I was like, you know, I went to school for this. I know what the research says because I try to stay current on the research. Why would I argue with somebody that just want to get on social media and argue? Why would I do that? Like, I don't have the time. I don't have the time and energy to argue with people or to go back and forth. I don't have time or energy. Okay, I don't have the time or energy to devote to people who just want to get an emotion out of me. I just don't have that kind of time or energy. I got 11 things that I'm doing on a day-to-day basis, and to sit and go back and forth and try to prove myself to somebody, I don't have time to do that. I don't have the emotional capacity to do that. I just don't do that. I just don't do that. And so I was explaining myself to this individual who was watching one of my videos, who said that if a person is married, then it automatically assumes consent. It does not. It does not automatically assume consent. Just because you are married to somebody, it doesn't mean that they have all kind of entitlement to your body. That's not what that means. That does not mean that. It does not mean that. And I don't know where we got off teaching that stuff, that there's not consent in marriage and there's not boundaries in marriage or in long-term relationships. No one is entitled to your body. A respectful, honorable relationship is mutual pleasure, mutual understanding, mutual respect for one another. It's mutual. And just because I have your last name does not entitle you to have my body whenever you want to have my body, at your discretion, however you want it and whenever you. No, it does not. That's dishonorable to the person to even think that. Because at that point, it's not mutual and it's not intimacy. It's you objectifying who they are. And anytime you go to objectify a person or make them look like an object, you're saying to them that they're there for your pleasure. And that is not okay, because intimacy is built when it's mutual. So we have to, I do anyway, maybe some other people, other coaches on Facebook or therapists, they don't want to address, the sexual violence inside relationships. But I do, because I know the women that I deal with. I know the women who I'm talking to on the day in and day out basis who are dealing with these things in marriage. And so I cannot afford to not address them, because we have people who are hurting. We have people who are looking for answers and they're looking for help. And so, hey, part of my platform is being transparent. Another part of my platform is making sure that I provide the real information to real people, even if it's hard. So here's some truths that I want to talk about with toxic relationships, and then I'm going to let y'all go, okay? Because once I get talking, I can keep going. But I'm going to dial it in and tell y'all the truth. The truth about toxic, as if I hadn't told y'all already. Like, I done dropped a lot of truths already. So here's some other ones that I want to talk about. Is that toxic relationships thrive off of you not knowing who you are. They thrive. Toxic relationships, you can only be involved in a toxic relationship if you're not clear about who you are. I think I just want to let that soak in, because I need to give me some water. So let that soak in for a minute. You can only thrive. Toxic relationships only thrive off of you not knowing who you are. Because if you knew who you are, it's just some stuff you just wouldn't put up with. It's just some stuff that you wouldn't put up with. Even if you came into the relationship and they presented themselves to be somebody that you thought you were going to spend the rest of your life with, and they could do no wrong, they were perfect, they were, maybe a perfect father, or, whatever drew you in the beginning. Whatever drew you in the beginning. This little bug is like a little gnat, like a fruit fly. that's like a little fruit fly. But it thrives off of you not knowing. If they came into a relationship, they presented themselves to be someone, and if you knew who you were, if you were clear on who God created you to be, your identity, and you were solid in it, then you would know when it was time for you to walk away. You would know when it was time for you to walk away. You would say that relationship's not good for me. I'm doing what I need to do for myself. And before it can even get to the point to where it's extremely toxic and you just feel like you don't know where you are and don't know who you get to the point to where your self-esteem is diminished. Before it even gets to that point, if you knew who you were, you'd walk away. You would have no need for somebody like me. You have no need for somebody like me, because you know who you are. So because you knew who you are, then you know there's some things that you're not going to put up with. But when you don't know who you are, then you probably put up with things that you probably shouldn't. And even if you knew who you are, if you're not solid and grounded in that, and you're not walking fully in who you are, then you're probably compromising on a lot of areas in your life. Not just with relationships, but a lot of areas in your life. So toxic relationship thrives off of not knowing who you are. Well, what does that mean? So what do you do? Like, then you get to know who you are. And for a lot of people, that's hard because that means I got to be alone. That means I have to be alone. Like, there may be a period of time that I have to be alone. And some people don't like to be alone. Some people don't like themselves enough to be alone. And if you don't like yourself enough to be alone, then that's a whole nother issue that we need to talk about. And then what if you're married? You're in a toxic relationship, and you realize, oh my goodness, I really don't know who I am. Like, I done put up with a whole lot of stuff, and I really don't know who I am. So what do? How do I get to know myself? Like, I can't be alone because I still legally am married. So how do I be alone? Let me just tell you. You can still get to know yourself and be married. You know what that's called? It's called learning how to have time with yourself, by yourself, doing things that are for you, prioritizing your self-help, prioritizing your self-care, doing what you need to do in order for you to thrive, in order for you to grow, in order for you to mature, in order for you to do what you need to do for your mental health and for what you have been called to do, regardless of whether or not you have the support from your partner. And that's hard for a lot of people, especially for people who are in toxic relationships, because they feel like they need the other person's approval. You don't need nobody else's approval. I don't care if it's your spouse. I'm saying this married. Like, we've been married for 11 years. You don't need your spouse's approval for you to be who you are. You don't need them. If they can accept you for who they are, and if we're talking about toxic relationship and there's abuse, then we might need to question whether that relationship needs to continue. I don't care if it's a marriage. Just saying. There's a lot of other stuff that go in that. And I'm very strategic when I'm working with a married woman, because most of my clients are women. So when I'm working with a married woman, it's not my decision. Like, I don't make that decision for you. That's a decision that you have to arrive to for yourself. But what I am going to challenge you to do is to learn yourself, get to know who you are, get to know what you need, and prioritize that. And it's not selfish for you to do that. It's not selfish. We cannot pour from an empty cup. I know we think we preach strong women. We preach this all over the place, especially for women of color. Like, we preach this a lot. It's like, we strong. We can do anything, and we can do whatever. No, we cannot. We cannot pour from an empty cup. We have to take time and give ourselves what we need. We have to take time and do that. It's vital that we take time to do that. So the next one, the other truth about a toxic relationship is that it thrives off of you not understanding how to set boundaries. I talked a little bit about that in the beginning, and I just did a video. I think it was Friday. Was it Thursday or Friday? You can go back and find that video on how to set boundaries. Talking about the importance of boundaries, because boundaries teach us where another person starts and where they stop, and where you start and what you stop and where you stop. And it also teaches our expectations and what our expectations are and what do we need in order for the relationship to thrive, or what do we need. And it teaches us all about those things, and even it teaches the difference between who you are and then who I am, and whether or not we can actually match, or whether we actually we're a good match, because sometimes we're just not a good match, and we need to know how to walk away from those situations. So the truth is, toxic relationships thrive off of you not understanding how to set boundaries, which means you have to learn how to set boundaries. And you have to learn this is one that people who, especially if you're used to people pulling on you, like just saying no. Hey, queen. Just saying no is is hard for some people, especially if you got people who depend on you a lot and they pull on you. Like, just saying no for you is like you letting them down, or you feeling like you're letting them down. And sometimes people will try to make you feel bad about saying no, or not coming around, or not being in contact with a toxic family member. Like, people will try to make you feel bad. Like, I can't tell you the number of people's like, but that's your mama, or that's your auntie, or that's your uncle. But so what? They molested me when I was a child. I don't have to be around them. I don't have to be around them. And so sometimes setting boundaries is learning how to walk away, us learning how to say no. And then the last one is that toxic relationships thrive off of emotional vulnerability. So if you're emotionally vulnerable, and some things that make us emotionally vulnerable is not being healed in certain areas of our life. Like, if we have certain parts, certain things that it may have happened to us when we were children, or happened to us in other relationships that we just kind of kept going. Because, we keep going over a lot of stuff, y'all. Like, we can keep going over a lot of stuff. That it makes us vulnerable. If we don't get healed, if we don't take time to pour back into ourselves and go get the healing that we need, then it makes us vulnerable to people who are looking for other people that are broken. And it's almost like a magnet. Like, when you have wounds in your heart that are left there that have not been healed, hey, timeless beauty. But when you have wounds in your heart that are left there that have not been healed, it's almost like a magnet. You don't realize it's a magnet, right? We don't realize it's a magnet, but it's almost like your heart, the brokenness that's in your heart is like a magnet that's attracting other broken people. Whether it's broken friendships, whether it's broken bosses, or whether it's broken partners, like, it's attracting someone else that is broken. And the only way to turn your magnet off, to fix your picker, I had a professor who used to say my picker was broken. So the only way to fix your picker and the people that you're attracting, or the people that you're picking, is to start filling those wounds, right? And the only way we can fill our wounds is by doing something about it. Awareness is only one part of it. The other part is actually doing something about it. So whether that's hiring somebody, like going back to therapy, or going to therapy, or going in, hiring a coach, or hiring somebody, a counselor, or sometimes it's just forgiving, or going back and asking for forgiveness, or actually bringing closure to a relationship that didn't heal the right way. Like, sometimes it doesn't have to be. Everybody don't have to. I think everybody needs a therapist. I'm just gonna be honest. I think everybody should go to therapy at some point in time in their life, especially if you're trying to reach new levels. Like, sometimes you realize that you just stuck, you blocked, and you can only come to a certain level. And if you feel like you can only come to a certain level in your life, then it's time that you hire somebody else at a level that's higher than you, or that is at the level that you want to get to, that can help pull you to that next level. So whether that's a therapist, whether that's a coach, or whether that's going and do the self-help, or doing something that you need in order to take you to that next level. But to heal the wounds in your heart, you need somebody to help you. You need somebody to help you. You need somebody to help you. We can only journal so much. And I think, journaling is an excellent tool. An excellent tool. We can only journal so much. But remember what I talked about earlier, like, we see things through the wounds of our eyes, or of our heart. So if your heart is wounded, you're probably seeing people through that wounded heart. You're seeing people through the wounds of your heart. So you need someone to say, no, that ain't right. That ain't healthy. Like, you're not doing that. Why are you doing that? Where'd that come from? Where did you learn that? Who taught you that? Who told you you were that way? Who told you that you always had to think negative? Do you realize you always think negative? Where did it come from? Whose voice is that? Whose voice are you hearing? Is it your voice? Is it your mom's voice? Is it the enemy voice? Like, what do you hear? You need someone on the outside that can help challenge these things. So that's all I have for you guys. It's the truth about toxic relationships. If anybody, hey there, NJ Ilando, I hope I got your name right. Thank you for joining, NJ Ilando, and Timeless Beauty, and Queen Real Deal, and Miss Gail, and George A. Thank y'all for joining Worship 91. Thank y'all for joining IG on tonight. I appreciate y'all so much. Let me check my comments on the other platforms. I don't see any comments, but I'll take comments. I don't know nothing about the little question mark box on IG. So if you have any questions, you probably do better posting them in the comments, or just send me a private message. Send me a private message. I do offer coaching. Our first 30 minutes is on us, which means you get a free 30-minute coaching session at your discretion. If you have questions that you don't want to answer, on live, because it's like that, especially with, this stuff. Y'all see that little fruit fly? It's aggravating me on the night. It may be drawn to my light. But message me. Feel free to message me. I have people who join. If you're on IG, I think you can go to my profile. Make sure you go up to that little area and that you're following me. But you can go to my profile and go right there and book directly from my profile. But the first 30 minutes of our coaching session is on me. We spend the first 15 minutes me listening to you. Where are you trying to go? What areas are you struggling in the most? And I've had a lot of experience with just interviewing and and all of this just from being a therapist. And so a lot of times I'm able to really pick up on what people are dealing with and actually make the connection right there in 15 minutes. I thank God, like the Lord has gifted me to be able to do that. And I've been doing it for so long. 15 minutes is enough for me to hear your heart. And then the next 15 minutes I literally spend with giving you strategy. I give you strategy, whether that's, baby doll, I think a better route for you would be therapy. Or, hey, I think we can really do some good work, in coaching. Or here's what I think you can do. If journaling is good, or this is an area that you maybe need to spend some time by yourself processing beforehand and figuring out what you want, then here's what it is. I spend that last 15 minutes giving you strategy. You don't leave away with a to-do, or without a to-do. I'm going to give you a to-do. I was in a 30-minute session with a person the other day, and I was like, here's what I hear, here's what I see, this is what you need to do, here's your homework, and blah, 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 here's what you need to do. And they left away from that 30-minute session in 15 minutes with the homework in a 30-minute session. Because my goal here is to see people healed. That's my goal. That's where my heart is. I know what it's like to be in a toxic relationship. I know what it's like to be a sexual abuse survivor because I am one, a 4-time sexual abuse survivor. And I know what it's like to be a teen mom and to be a single parent and to do, I know what a lot of this stuff that I talk about is like. So when I'm talking about it, I'm not talking about it from a standpoint of as a therapist. A lot of times I'm talking about it from a standpoint of, baby girl, this is what I went through. I can relate to this. This is something familiar to me. So our 30 minutes is not wasted time. It's not wasted time. If you just need the 30 minutes, then it's on us. You can book directly from my profile, or if you're on Facebook, it's right there pinned right at the bottom in our comments. Hey, Dr. Monica, I didn't even know you were on. I'm just checking my comments. For some reason, they weren't showing up on my other thing. But hey, Vera and Holly. Hey, y'all. Thank y'all for joining on tonight. It was just not showing up that any comments was coming through. But I'm glad I saw those. Thank y'all for those who shared too. But yeah, we don't come away from, I don't believe in wasting my time. So if we talking for 30 minutes, some work gonna get done. Especially now. But I am completely booked up for the month of September. I was looking at my calendar today. I was like, I don't even know how. I got a lot of stuff on my calendar to do for the September. So my September booking is closed, but I am taking appointments for October. They will open up. My appointments are actually already open for the month of October. I will close those as soon as I reach my maximum, because I don't believe in overworking myself either. I try not to, because I have a lot of other things and other projects that I'm working on. So I don't like to overwhelm myself. And so the booking for October is open for discovery calls, or if you already know that you're ready to do the work, then the booking is open for that too. I don't see any questions. I love you guys. Thank you so much for joining on tonight. I think I might like this 7:00. We'll see. I'm testing it out this week, and if it works, then it might stick. But I think I kind of like the 7:00. What about y'all? especially for those who don't ever get a chance to join live. Let me go back to my comments. 20. Yeah, it's a good old time. Hey, Carol. Hello. Yeah, I'm waiting to see. I know it's a little delay, but for IG, what do y'all think about the 7 o'clock? You're welcome, Timeless Beauty. Hey, G-Tech. Keep going back and forth. Girl, or I don't even know if you're girl. I'm just saying, listen. Going back and forth. Back and forth. I missed all y'all's comments. I'm sorry. Relationship blossomed during pandemic. Oh, that's good. The relationship blossomed during the pandemic. So was it bad before? Or was it kind of like y'all just had time to get to know each other? I hope are you still on? Hey, G-Tech. Let me see any other comments that I might have missed. Pandemic did a number. Let me tell you, like 2020 was a wake-up call for a lot of people. It was a wake-up call for me. It was a wake-up call for me in my own relationship. It's like, it was almost like my eyes were open to see things, some areas that I just didn't see. Say toxic relationship blossomed during pandemic, but not a good thing now. Yes. And so I would want to know, like, did anything change during that time? Or was it the fact that y'all may have spent a little bit more time together, and now that we back outside, that, y'all are just kind of pulling apart? Because it's something about being in a crisis that sometimes people band together, but if no real work is being done on the relationship during that time, then it's not enough to sustain the relationship. But I would want to know a little bit more details, and I'm not going to get you to air your stuff out. Yeah. But it does happen. It's just something about crisis that sometimes we seem to band together. And like during the pandemic, I was looking for the research on it, because I was like, surely a lot of people, I know my relationship just did. I mean, like I said, it was an eye-opener for me, 2020 was. So I'm like, surely a lot of more other people had this realization during the pandemic. It could not have just been me. But if the way the pandemic, or at least the research now, says that for the people whose relationships were kind of okay, like it might have been some minor areas that needed changing. Okay, somebody else on Facebook says 2020 was the beginning of my therapy journey. It was an eye-opener. It just was. It was an eye-opener for a lot of people. And so the research says that if you were kind of doing okay, then your relationship thrived. And man, a lot of people got closer during the pandemic. But if the relationship was, already on the brinks before the pandemic, and it was areas that you just kind of overlooked, or issues that really wasn't fixed, and y'all just kind of kept going, kept living, kept working, and kept moving on past, but didn't necessarily address that the pandemic kind of highlighted a lot of those areas. And so those relationships were actually more in trouble during the pandemic. So maybe you can kind of see which one fit, and if neither one don't fit, it might be something else. Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate it. I really do appreciate that. Yeah. Okay, but other than that, let me check. I know one of my friends had a breakup a couple of months ago. They were together for a while, I bet, huh? I don't oppose nobody breaking up, because sometimes we need to break up. Like, I'm just sometimes we need to break up. And for women, like, sometimes we just hold on, y'all. Like, we hold on a lot longer than we need to hold on. Let's just really be honest. For some, like, and I think it's because emotionally we can take a lot. Some of us, I'm not going to generalize that, but for a lot of us, we can take a lot. And so when we just kind of had enough, then our enough is enough. Like, we through. You can't do nothing. 3 to 5, they were together 3 to 5 years. That's a long time. And so, she or he probably needed to walk away. Like, after 3 to 5 years, if things hadn't changed and the person had made known their intentions, then it's time. Like, my absence would speak volumes. It would speak volumes over my presence being here, and it's not a good situation. You would feel my absence. So they probably needed to, and it was probably better. Like, one or both of them probably emotionally are better after the breakup. It's your friends, so I'm sure you can tell that they're probably different, and maybe a little better if it was toxic now after the breakup. Okay, so Facebook says 2020 helped me to leave a toxic situation. Okay. Girl, sitting at home. I'm telling you, sitting at home, and you don't have nothing but time and space to think and reevaluate your life, especially it was a lot of losses. Going on, and uncertainty about, well, if I catch COVID, am I gonna survive? Like, it was just a lot of uncertainty, and so we were just kind of forced to really question our life. Like, is this how I really want my life to continue? I did. Maybe I'm the only one, but I just had a lot of self-evaluation for me. And I ended up going to therapy. I went to therapy in 2020, and the very first thing, or it wasn't the very first thing, but it was one of the things that I remember my therapist telling me. She said, I remember this to this day because it was a truth that I needed to hear. She said, you don't need him to validate you. I was like, y'all, now, if your therapist don't say stuff like that to you, that just kind of hit you right at your heart, you need another therapist. You need a therapist that's going to be real with you. Okay, so she says, is it possible a person can reunite with their ex in 6 months? Yes, it is possible. The only thing that I would say when reconciling with the ex is, if it was a toxic situation, then I'm not going to advise anybody to go back to a situation that's abusive in any format ever. Because those usually point to, especially if you're with an abusive partner, they have some other issues there that they need to work out for themselves. So I'm never going to tell anybody to go back to an ex that's toxic or abusive in any form, in any way. But can they reunite? Absolutely. People separate all the time and realize, I really do care about this person. I really want to work on this, and I'm willing to do what it takes to work on this, or in order to prove to this person that I really want to be with them, or I'm intentional by being with them. Like, it is possible. Here's what I would suggest, though. If you're going to look at going back with the ex, I would suggest asking them if they would be willing to go to therapy with you. And if they aren't, then you would need to see, what are they willing to do? How are they going to be held accountable, or how are the both of you going to be held accountable, and who is going to come around and support you in that relationship. But I really would like for you guys to think about maybe therapy or a coach or somebody that can point out why y'all broke up in the first place, and maybe it's something that still hadn't been dealt with that needs to be addressed before y'all can actually move forward and actually it be a healthy relationship. But yeah, anything 3 months, 2 months, people break up and get back together all the time, but they don't need to do that without actually healing and dealing with the issues. Not just because I miss you, because I miss you not gonna pay bills. I miss you is not gonna guarantee a good relationship. I love you is not gonna ever guarantee that. But what can guarantee that is having some accountability, working through the problems and working through the issues, and moving forward together on the same page. I hope I answered your question. Hope I answered your question. Good question. Good question. Okay, let me check the other platform. You say your therapist is like that. Yeah, you mean, I mean, your therapist ain't straightforward with you, then you need another therapist. You just do. You know, because your therapist should be telling you the truth. I've worked with people. She had refused to do therapy a few months ago. She may want to reconsider that. Or even a coach, you know, or somebody that can see what we don't see, because sometimes we have blind spots, like, you know, we have parts about our personalities that we used to because we've been with ourselves all our life, right? You know, the people like our family members and all that, those are our family members, so they probably put up with us a little bit more than the other people, and they may not even see our blind spots. And so being with somebody, a third person, helps us to see our blind spots and help us to be able to work through it. So it may be something that they will reconsider, or working with a coach or somebody else that can meet with the both of them together, if it's possible. Yep. So, yeah. I think that's all my questions. I'm going to wait and see if they respond. And me check the other comments. LaShonda, my therapist told me that it changed my whole world. It was like, wait a minute. And it also challenged some theology, like, you know, because I come from the Christian background, and y'all, I'm not gonna get on my rant on how we need to reteach relationships, because we have not done relationships. Go watch one of my other videos where I talk about that, especially when it comes down to marriage. Like, we've done people a disjustice just not teaching about marriage the right way, and we've done them a disjustice, and we just need to throw the whole way, or at least some parts of it. I don't say the whole way we teach about marriage. Sometimes we don't even teach on marriage. We just assume that two people that love each other, it's just gonna work. And no, it don't work that way. It don't work that way. We need to reteach that stuff, because it just messed a lot of people up. Can flowers help? What helps is changed behavior. That's what helps. It's changed behavior. Now, flowers, because acts of kindness or acts of service and gift, getting gifts may be your love language, or maybe their love language. It may be. So it may help. It may help. But changed behavior, depending on what the situation is what changed behavior, and maybe some communication and healing or whatever happened in the relationship. It's kind of hard to say with not knowing what happened in the relationship. That's what would determine reconciliation. Changed behavior. Flowers can help, but I want to see your behavior change. That's how I am. It's like, thank you for the flowers. Thank you for the food. I love a good crab and shrimp dinner. Thank you for the purse. Thank you for the gift. I appreciate it. But, I'd rather have your heart. I'd rather have you. I'd rather have truth. I'd rather have honesty. I'd rather feel secure in knowing, that the person that I'm with is only with me. Like, I'd rather have that over your gifts and your acts of kindness. I appreciate it, because you didn't have to do it, so I appreciate it. But I'd rather have the things that sustain relationships long term. Okay. How can a person show change behavior with her notice? How can a person show change behavior? Consistency. Consistency shows change behavior. So if there is something that you guys have been working on together, see, and that's the beauty of having a coach or a therapist that's working with you. If it's something that the two of you are working on together, then what happens is you get to see someone on the outside point out where maybe some areas aren't as strong as they should be. And what shows change behavior to another person is consistency. So in 2 weeks, they may not notice it. In a month, depending on how bad the breakup was or how hard the pain was, whatever, depending on whatever happened, you might not see it in a couple of weeks or a month or 2 months or whatever. It may take time. And so what you have to do during that time is to just be patient. And and that can be hard. Like, it's hard, especially if it's some person that you've hurt. Hey, Tiffany, we share the same name. Hey, Tiffany. So what you have to do in that process when you're healing hurt, and like I said, this is only for relationships that are on the verge. If it's toxic, then that's a whole nother way that we deal with those. Whole nother way. But you have to be patient. You have to be patient and understand that, hurts don't just happen with one time. Sometimes it's over time. And just like it happened over time, it may take an overtime deal in order to repair that. And so you have to be patient in the process, being patient that they still may have some anger there. They still may hold, some resentment. Sorry, my screen was going down. But they still may, they still may need time to heal. They still may need time to heal. And so you have to be patient during the process while they're going through their healing or but you have to be patient, and you also have to be consistent. Have to be patient and consistent. Yeah. Okay. Because that little fly is getting on my, I'm like, okay. Now, I hadn't seen that little fly all day, and then all of a sudden I go live and here it is. So then I have flowers in the background, or plants in the background. So yeah. I love you guys. It has been fun being on here tonight. I'll be back tomorrow. Let me see what we're talking about tomorrow. I don't quite remember what we're talking about tomorrow. Let me look and see what we're talking about. Why people stay in toxic relationships. Oh, that was going to be good, because we're going to talk a little bit about attachment tomorrow. Attachment theory. If you don't know what that is, you got time to go Google it and look up some stuff about attachment tomorrow. Come with your questions as we talk about what attachment and how attachment, what it looks like and how it plays out in relationships. So we'll talk about why people stay in toxic relationships tomorrow. So y'all come on back tomorrow at 7. I love y'all. Have a wonderful, wonderful night. Let me make sure I don't have any more questions before I sign off. I don't see any more on IG. Let me check Facebook and see if I have any more questions before I sign off. I don't want to ignore anyone. And I don't see any more questions that I know of. But if I do, remember, I do have my free discovery calls. That's 30 minutes on us, a free 30 minutes on us that you guys can book. For October. I'm closed out for good night, G-Tech. Thank you for your questions. Very good questions. I hope I helped. If you have any other follow-up questions, just hit me up in my messenger, okay? But I do have my discovery calls that I offer, and you guys can book those directly from my profile. Hey, Dr. D, you're catching the tail end. We're getting ready to log off. Thank you for joining. Thank you for joining. Thank you for joining. I have an event coming over, Dr. D. I think it's a private event, but I'm so excited about it. She's amazing, y'all. Y'all go follow her before you click off of here. Go follow Dr. D. Amazing, amazing woman of God. Amazing. Love you all. Have a good night.